As I fester in place during this coronavirus epidemic, certain odd notions and quiddities come to mind. For example, the nature of our physical existence. Are we like this bunny rabbit, eating while napping, and sometimes, though I failed to get the footage that would prove it, defecating even as he continued to ingest his grassy meal? Or are we now more like this inanimate object, moving briskly in the wind, but lacking any volition? As for me, I am not a rodent. I am not a shiny silver ball. I am a videographer. In a recent film, my friend the artist Bill Scott told me that being too frightened to venture outside, he now takes his exercise by walking up and down his staircase. Where I live, it's still safe to venture outside. But for how much longer? So yes, I would emulate Bill. I began by just pacing. 11 stairs up, 11 down, 11 up, 11 down. But after a while, I added some 10-pound dumbbells to increase the bodily strain. As I moved and sweated, my mind wandered over some of my recent internet readings. In a piece for the New York Times, Gina Colada wrote, "The medieval pandemic began in 1331 in China. The illness, along with a civil war that was raging at the time, killed half the population of China. From there, the plague moved along trade routes to Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. In the years between 1347 and 1351, it killed at least a third of the European population. After my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer at age 70, he would look at the daily obituaries. If a man had died and was younger than 70, my father would award himself a point. If the deceased was older than 70, he would subtract a point. In his game of life, we surely must be winning, at least when compared to people of the 14th century. After a while, the 10-pound dumbbells were too much for me. The idea of sustaining this for 40 minutes wasn't going to work. I rested and then shifted to 2-pound weights. Yes, this would do nicely. My thoughts wandered to an article from Boston Review that my friend Bob Lazell shared on Facebook. Writer Jonathan Fuller explained that there are two camps in modern epidemiology: the public health approach and the clinical approach. He writes, COVID-19 has revealed a contest between two competing philosophies of scientific knowledge. He explains that the public health side tries to model how an epidemic will play out. Models rely on assumptions that may or may not be correct. The clinical side is all about collecting data, preferably random sampling, which is as uncontaminated by assumptions as possible. Both sides have had successes. Fuller concludes that both are needed. He writes, "Models without evidence are blind, while evidence without models is inert. Only by borrowing from both ways of thinking will we have the right mind for a pandemic." 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 steps up, 11 steps down. The right mind for a pandemic. Mens sana in corpore sano. A sound mind in a sound body. Bertrand Russell argues correctly that only through immersion in mathematics can we find happiness. And yet, if we take no pains, a wrong mind for a pandemic is always threatening. Maybe I am not a videographer. Maybe the world is a bunny's ear, and I am one of the ticks infesting it. No, I can't think like that. Just walk and count. 1, and count, 2, 3, and 4, count, 5, 6, and all 7, will be 8, well. 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.